Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. And I'll call this meeting to order. Effective August 16th, 2023, the public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link below. Meeting notice will reflect if the meeting is Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allows, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. The mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners, and I ask that you join me.
United States of America. And under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, first item of business is oral communications. I'll read the guidelines. It's the public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting heard under oral communications. Oral communication shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state the problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subject. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with permission of the chair. Persons speaking of oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communications to the recording secretary. If there is anybody that would like to speak to us, now is your opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, I actually wasn't going to, but my name is Dawn Leone, and I just wanted to thank Amy Pasquarello for an amazing PD session yesterday. I'm actually going to be able to put in place what I learned yesterday in a lesson plan I have tomorrow. So that's all. Thank you.
We have 0 attendees.
One.
Oh, okay. One attendee. Nope. That's Stan. Okay, so seeing no other hands raised or anyone in the audience, on to the next item of business, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they would like to remove from the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried unanimously, 7-0. Deliberations on education issues and superintendent's report. Well, oh, sorry. Oh, well, I know we don't have students, so
Oh, we don't have.
we don't have students joining us tonight because they're all cheering the boys on the
Yeah.
soccer game. Yes, recognition. Sorry.
Sure. So I actually just to recognize all the voters, all the people who came out to vote, and you know, this is, as they say, that democracy is not as work. So I appreciate everyone who comes and votes, and I encourage more and more people to come and vote in school.
Yeah, I just want to recognize the fall athletic teams who have had quite the season on a bunch of different fronts, and I want to give a shout out to the coaches. I don't know what goes into the coaching teams like that, and they've just done. I've witnessed a bunch of games this year, and they've done a phenomenal job. We're very fortunate to have such good coaches. So
can you probably build on that with some photos and some more detail?
it's yes.
Does it go?
No, I was gonna be a wise guy.
Brian Lafada was going to be here tonight, but happily he's not. Don't like Brian, okay, but he's actually has to be at the staffing the boys soccer match, their second round playoff. So I'm just going to give a few updates here. And so here we go. So instead of Brian here, he's given us a bunch of photos, also some updates. So the football team qualified for the state tournament, first time since 2018. Unfortunately, they were the 16th seed They were not able to top the number 1 seed, Hanover, last Friday, but great season for them. They still have a consolation game against Revere this week, and then of course the annual Thanksgiving game against Danvers, Thanksgiving. So his captains Michael Toppin and Jaden Toppin, Cameron Whitfeld and Ethan Mahoney led the team this year. 12 seniors on the team, so that's a great senior group, but not too big, which means we have even better, hopefully even better years ahead. And then Don Cucciardi was named the Boston Globe and the Herald Division 5 Player of the Week at the end of the regular season for his game of 4 touchdown passes and 212 yards. And also he got 212 yards passing, 132 rushing, and another touchdown. So really great year for the football team that continues for those. The field hockey team has been fantastic. They have made it to state playoffs as well after a 13-3-2 record. They are now into the 3rd round, having beaten Belchertown 7-0 and East Long Meadow yesterday 3-0. That's 10 goals for, 0 against in the playoffs, which is pretty fantastic. And they've been led by captained by Ella Costa, Abby Lothers, and Ari Scola, and they have 10 seniors as well. So some really good senior leadership on both the girls field hockey and the football team. Soccer co-champs are the boys soccer team were the co-champs in the NEC Lynch division. They are playing as we speak in their first round conference Division 3 state tournament game. First game of the state tourney. They're the number 2 overall seed in Division 3 after a 14-3-1 season. So they continue some really, really good progress and success that they've had over the last few years. 6 seniors on the team, and they're a bunch of captains there: Leo Vitale, Benjamin Watts, Brandon Anderton, Gino Tripoli, and Dominic Paoni. So really, really fantastic team who's has been really recognized in the NEC postseason awards. So, but there, hopefully, we'll get some news maybe during the meeting that they've continued on.
You have a lifeline?
No, I don't actually, but
I can phone it down.
so maybe someone can phone up Brad or text a friend. The girls soccer team has continued their progress they've been making, 7-7-3 overall season. First year coach Katina Tibbetts. That is the same Katina Tibbetts.
Yes.
The same Katina Tibbetts who works as an EL instructor and was highlighted in the Ed Week article that spotlighted Gloucester. It's her first season as coach, and they made it to the Division 3 state tournament for the first time in 7 years. So really, congratulations to girls soccer. They lost their preliminary round game, unfortunately, 1-0. A very tight match. But really pleased with senior leadership. It includes captains Abby Stouffer, Morgan Penamede, and Bella Batari. And then junior Taya, thank you, Taya Mano, was NEC All Conference, and then Abby Stouffer and Morgan Penamede, both captains, were NEC All Stars. So just great progress from our girls soccer team. It continues. Our cheerleading squad has done really well. This year they finished 2nd place in the Wilmington Wildcats Spooky Invitational. No, that was a thing. And then they hosted the Northeast Conference Championship on November 2nd, where they achieved a qualifying score to advance to the regional competition, which is coming up this Sunday in Billerica. So that's fantastic for our cheer squad. Led by 3 senior captains: Bella Morawski, Brooke McNiff, and Emma Smith. Brooke was recognized at the NEC Championship and as an NEC All-Star All-Conference performer. So just congratulations to the cheerleading squad. I think this might be the last team, but GH's golf team has been just fantastic over the last number of years, and they continue that this year, 10-6-1 for overall record. Finished 2nd place in Division 2 North Sectional Tournament, but then had continued success. Joe Orlando and Drew Johnson represented the GHS Fisherman team in the Northeastern Conference Open. That was at Tedesco Golf Club. Joe and Drew won the Open Championship for the Fishermen, with Joe leading the way as the #1 scoring individual in the tournament. I believe he was 1 over par. So the captains are Joe Orlando. The team that represented at the conference, at the championship, was Joe Orlando, Drew Johnson, Isaiah Francis, Nick Tarantino, Cameron Francis and Adam Niglieri, sorry. And Orlando and Johnson were selected as NEC all-conference performers. And then I think it was Isaiah Francis, I hope I got that right, Nick Tarantino were NEC All-Stars. So just fantastic season for them, as they've been doing every year since I've gotten here and before that. So, and then cross country, shown by our captains, Colby Rochford and Bate Catalucci, who were instrumental in the, it's a joint team. So Manchester Essex and Gloucester High be it together because it's of lower numbers. So they competed for Manchester Essex, and then were instrumental in Manchester Essex season or captains of the squad for the final season, which is great. But not having a team this season, GS Athletics and the cross country track boosters happily hosted the NEC cross country championships at Stage 4 Park. As folks remember, our track and field teams have done very well recently. So really appreciate Colby and Faith holding on the fort for cross country. Really appreciate it. That's the recognitions for athletics for this season.
Cross country in Ravenswood Park anymore? That's what I was just reading.
I think they do, but when they have had the conference championship,
Yeah.
they do it Stage 4.
Yeah.
And then a couple times.
There were a couple weeks.
Huh?
They go around.
Yeah. I used to love running through Ravenswood.
Couple trees down.
Oh boy, no, hurdles.
Right. So that's the
That's an excellent report.
yeah, that's just the recognitions for tonight, for our sort of, once a season update.
Okay, now we will move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, so as we say, every day matters and everybody belongs in Gloucester Public Schools. So a few updates here, actually quite a number of updates. As Dawn was nice enough to tell us about, had a fantastic professional development day yesterday. It started off with Larry Lamb, and so first of all, I would thank Amy Pascal again for her, but also our coaches, Brittany Holmes. This is to have the whole entire staff, and that means teachers, paraprofessionals, our support staff, district office as well, all were here yesterday, okay? And that really had many things for everybody, okay? Role-specific training, but a lot of offerings, and really organized it. Amy organized it in a way where folks had, everyone had the first session together, which I'll talk about in a moment, but then you had choice, and you're able to, you have three sessions to select your own choice. And it was 2 that are directly related to your work and your position, and then 1 which is about self-care and personal learning. So really a nice combination there. And so Larry Lamb, who started with about a 90-minute session with all staff, and now it's about collaborative problem solving, relational discipline, and it's the idea that in order to help kids, kids in behavior and doing well, and it's really more about skill and then just will. And so most kids and adults often need to develop better skills for problem solving, for sort of operating a team, operating as a group, operating in a classroom. And so Mr. Lamb really helped us think about the idea of moving in addition to punitive discipline, really needing relational problem solving with students. And in working with students in that way, you're helping them build skills to be better at what we want them to be better at, which is being a student, learning, working with teams, working in their classroom. And so it's a skill-based approach. And you may remember we talked about Lynn Lyons and the work with our clinical staff. That's also a skill-building approach. The idea that folks who anybody, kids, adults, who are struggling with anxiety or stress, what helps them isn't just to work harder at it, but to develop skills. And the same thing with behavior and discipline as well. So that, I think it was thought provoking for folks, but also really, pushed us in thinking in new ways. Supports a lot of the work we're doing, but also I think pushes as well. Great.
Were all the staff in that session?
Yes, yep. So here are just some examples. On the left, staff are getting tips on this linguistically accessible and cognitively challenging learning for English learner students. On the right, and so most of the sessions were led by our own staff, but we had also a bunch that were led by outside consultants. Yeah, not sure why I'm presenting this. On the right, you are welcome to add anything you want. On the right, O'Malley Science Center Coordinator Amy Donnelly leads an open science lab for elementary school teachers. So in terms of having a science coordinator this year, that's one of the key areas, is to make sure that we are really supporting our teachers, our elementary school teachers on science instruction. So there's another example of what Amy's doing this year. On the left, you have a small team. This is the O'Malley Social Studies teachers, and they're reviewing curriculum. So they started a curriculum review, like we've done at O'Malley with English Language Arts, and also doing with math. They started one themselves, okay? So we, the ongoing curriculum work at O'Malley continues and continued yesterday, and they went for the session or a couple sessions.
That was a double session.
Double session, yeah, so they were working 2 of the sessions all together. On the right, Rose Goulart was helping, who was one of our health teachers here, was helping staff get trained in CPR, and also the defibrillator use as well.
Are all staff trained in CPR?
All staff are not
No.
trained?
No.
No, this is one of the offerings. It was, the target audience was our PE staff, but other staff signed up as well, and not all PE staff signed up for it, but that was the.
Is there a requirement for how many staff need to be trained in CPR?
Noontime supervisors are supposed to be trained to CPR. Nurses, of course.
On the left, Jeannie Day, she's from Wit and Wisdom, so she's working with our specialized support staff, training in Wit and Wisdom there. And on the right is a session of math fact fluency. Shannon Borowski and Kristen Parsons led that. So that was just about yesterday, and that was a small little tidbit of all that was going on.
There were probably over 80 sessions every day. Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Yeah, took up a lot of parking.
While we're on that topic,
Yes,
can we just, for the public, sort of what you will quote in the paper saying, just acknowledge that
Yeah.
in the future that.
yeah, so this is our first time, so in the past, we've done high school for election day, which we don't have, we have students at school off, and our staff are always here working and learning together. We've had pre-K through 8 at O'Malley, and the high school was here. This year, with Amy's leadership, decided to do it, and also sort of recommendations and requests, do it all together, okay? We didn't anticipate the parking challenges, probably should have, but you learn, every time you do something new. And while there was always parking in the front circle, which actually wasn't utilized much, honestly, it was always available for folks. There was some parking challenges, which was brought to our attention. Our folks, left early afternoon, so after that, it was wide open. But next year, what we'll do, we'll make sure that we, if we have it again here at the high school, I don't see why we wouldn't, very big success. We'll make sure we, reserve a number of spots for folks who need to vote, and also, tell people to park, sort of by athletic fields. And also we'll make sure that folks know who come to vote that the circle's wide open for their park. So, yeah, so, it was hard for some folks yesterday, but like I said, do something new for the first time and learn it. So that's what we do. Great presentation over the past couple of weeks for GHS students. This was Wes Woodson of Minding Your Mind. He's a recent college graduate, and he talked to students about anxiety and stress, and also the challenges. He shared his personal stories about overcoming anxiety and stress and negative sort of self-talk, and really was learning. He talked about starting to struggle with that when I think he was in elementary school. I think 3rd grade maybe. And that was about trying to reach his parents' standards and try to be perfect. And what was, I think, most impactful for students was that he was a younger person, sort of speaking in their language about not only his challenges, but also that, really his main messages were that seeking help is a sign of strength. Okay, and part of that, he talked about seeing a therapist and how much that helped him, or reaching out to a hotline. He also talked about, that when we struggle, we're not meant to struggle or suffer alone. He also talked about, learning that he is enough and really transferring that message to our students about, you are enough as you are, and try to resist the idea that you have to be more or what other folks, are trying to tell you to be. Let's say, what we have here, here's a picture. This was brought to us by our mental health ambassadors. They helped organize it and work on it. And we have a couple of just quotes we pulled out. So all the students filled out exit tickets about what they learned, what they thought about the presentation from Wes. So just a couple of quotes. This, meaning Wes's presentation, needs to become an annual event. Wes was amazing, energetic, impactful, powerful, and graceful. What he said needs to be heard from the youth firsthand because of how impactful it was, and what it means to take care of one's mental health. That's a quote from a GHS student. And then another quote, I think he was really good at reaching our audience because he is a college student and we were entering college. He was closer to our age and he can relate to better to him. So really good feedback on that, and a really helpful message, a very positive message. So also, folks should know that the Crane Estate Art Show that's going on right now, 6 of our students and their photos are represented there on display. It was November 4th and 5th this past weekend, and the theme for the show was celebrating the past, present, and future. So Maya Swain, Bailey Militello, Madison Conrad, Matthew Lopez, Cameron Whitfeld, and Lucas Howlett all had photos there. There's one from Cameron Whitfeld. There's one from Bailey Militello on the left, Matt Lopez on the right. I'm telling you what that is. Photo from Lucas Howlett on the left, fishing boat, and Madison Conrad on the right of Good Harbor. Maya Swain there on the left with some flamingos. And then you see that photo being presented at the Crane Estate. Right. Did that already? We'll go back to this one here because the news just in is that the boys have won 1-0. They're continuing on the soccer playoffs. So it's great news. Congratulations, go Michigan. So the GHS Theater Program is presenting Little Women this next week, November 16th, 17th, and 18th. Tickets are going fast. There are 4 shows. We've got 2 on Saturday, a matinee, and an evening performance. You can get tickets by going to the GHS website, GHS Performing Arts website, Facebook, all sorts of things. And should be a great show. Always is. A great show from our theater program and the student leader put there. O'Malley students are embracing their sales value. So as we always talk about, belonging really matters because when kids have a place that they feel like they belong in and a school that really cares about them, that's when they can learn best. And so here you have O'Malley 8th graders acting at their sales assembly. They're acting out a skit reporting on some of the good deeds that are done at O'Malley. So the first school rights assembly of the year was October 26th. And students 8th graders performed skits featuring a mock television news station. The student journalists reporting on sales themed good deeds that have happened. And some of those examples are, community service projects, helping out classmates, being respectful, using other people's preferred pronouns. And guidance counselor Mark Northandria challenged students to participate in community service activities and look out for each other. So just trying to have not only the adults and the teachers present the values at O'Malley, but also have the students lead other students as well. So that's an example of student leadership and students raising their voice up. And thank you also to 7th grader Lila Worthley, who sang "This Is Me," and student Gabriella McCurney closed out the assembly by singing "Party in the USA," which I'm sure exemplifies the sales value in some way. So there's Gabriella, and then there's also the students answering some questions at the assembly. So we're, as you know, Every Day Matters in our schools, and one of the ways that O'Malley is doing that is by having house attendance champs. So every quarter, they'll have a house that's attendance champs, and then also a homeroom. And so for the first first quarter, it was Deergo House. And so they hosted, O'Malley hosted a breakfast celebration for them. So the 87 Deergo seventh graders were treated to bagels, donuts, muffins, and refreshments in the cafeteria. And then teacher Dawn Burke's homeroom was got the homeroom trophy for the top overall seventh grade student attendance rate. There's Dawn Burke on the left there with Dennis Hurley, the principal. There's her home class there.
That's a terrific, I think it's a terrific idea.
Yeah.
Do it every quarter.
Yeah, every quarter, and then, I mean, the great thing about it is obviously the students are recognized for really attending, but then you're signaling to everyone else that it really matters. It's another way of communicating the message, right?
And the idea was developed by the staff, is that the way I understand?
I'm not sure actually, was staff or students?
Tennessee with input.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah, coming from the attendance team, right, exactly, of course, yeah. The O'Malley Science Center, unveiled their Science Central website, which is, you can get to numerous ways from the O'Malley site, which drop down, there's a link on the homepage at the bottom. But this also comes out of our new, the work that Amy Donnelly is leading from the Science Center. And also the website highlights the work and the projects that are being done and have been done in the STEM lab, the bio lab, the chem lab, and the design lab. It also highlights the work of our Wilson Intern Scholarship Program, and offering information on community partners and how they're supporting the Science Center. So just great job by Amy Donnelly, Specialist Dave Brown, and also our resident scientist, Chris Perry. It's great. Here's a few things that they show on the website of working in the chemistry lab on the right, working microscopes and studying flower reproduction on the left. Great work in our science labs there. And then another thing that comes out of the science program at O'Malley are the sale day for the 8th grade. So these are the sale cars that we have not been in play the last 3 years. So they're back at it. And this is their sale cars they designed. First, they developed small models, and then build sales that they attach the cars from their testing and their iterations there. And they salvage lumber tarps, and that's what they created the sales from. And they encouraged created approximately 80 different sales for the project, and then they would, I won't say they raced them around, but they sailed them around, drove them around the track and mailed them. So yeah, those
You
kind
need
of
to
stuff.
go upwind and downwind.
Yeah.
I was able to see it years ago. And it really is quite an exciting
Really
thing
cool.
to do.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
Yeah.
woo. It's the big
Quarter
difference.
scale models first, and then from trial and error come up with the designs they want, and their whole range of designs, from sort of gaff rig, that sort of thing, schooner rig, that sort of thing, basic triangles, and then all sorts of shapes. But they really got a chance to
Transferable skills.
yeah, in so many ways,
Yeah.
but really, what's great about it is the design work, trial and error, that's what science is, so. One last thing at O'Malley, so the anti-bullying assembly, so Mike Titus did a great job of really being clear with students, in positive ways, actually, but I'll just praise him while he listens. About really putting forth, the concern for safety, and kids being safe, and kids taking care of each other at O'Malley. Naming that bullying is a real challenging issue for students, especially in middle school. And not only should they take care of each other, but they should make sure they report any behavior or bullying behavior. And really appreciate Principal Titus being clear about that, or coming at it from an approach of student safety, really challenging kids to take care of each other. So those direct messages are super important. We shouldn't leave anything like that to doubt. And just really appreciate Mike stepping up for that way. And then at the elementary school, Halloween parades, which are great and wonderful and so much fun for everybody. We still believe in Halloween here at the Gospel Public Schools. There's a Public School trunk or treat. This was at East Veterans, their first ever Halloween parade. West Parish had their annual Halloween school parade, and then Beaman had their parade as well. And so you can see adults and kids in some pretty crazy costumes, which is a lot of fun. And then also the preschool had its trick or treat Halloween parade. That was remarkable. Yeah. We had the preschool staff and district office staff handing out treats and stickers and things like that. There's our director of finance in a Dalmatian costume on the left. You may not recognize Stephanie Frontiero, dressed up as a Dalmatian, but there she is. That was a bit of a shocker, but really well received. I think we were getting Nemo on the right, because then they went out, and I have never seen such a big crowd at the preschool than it was for the Halloween parade. There was just lots and lots of families there outside, and a beautiful day.
Most of the staff were dressed as some sort of fish, because they're the minnows.
Oh, that's right, that's what we have. I didn't get that.
Yes.
And then the final piece, it's always a joy to go off somewhere for some meeting that meeting's off-site. And for that, the North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable, they invited District Attorney Paul Tucker. There's like, 25 superintendents in the room from all over the District Attorney Paul Tucker. And talked a lot of important things, okay? And one thing he talked about was the SRO programs. And what he couldn't stop doing was praising the Gloucester SROs. Really impressed by, and then just was telling this to all superintendents from the North Shore. Really impressed by, first of all, the relationship our SROs have with our students and our families, and how they're a really integrated part of our schools and support our schools, but then also the real specific, also the programming they put on. Everyone knows about ACE here, but not everyone knows about ACE in other places, but now they do. But also, in the summertime, the Cops and Kids Youth Anglers program. And they got DA Tucker out there with them. He claims they've caught a really big fish that's got away, but whatever.
I heard that story too.
Yeah, exactly. He's not sure everybody. But really impressed with that. Really impressed with work. I kept on mentioning the work that Officer Michael Scola put together at the high school, especially around our prom. He came on the distracted driving, morning that we have, teaching kids about being safe when they're driving, especially around the senior events. And he was just really impressed by that. Told all the superintendents that, and also commenting on the last year we had a taco truck after the prom, so people came back here, to get food after the prom. And I shouldn't say we, that's James Cook and Officer Scola putting it together.
When we had ice cream truck after the Demi.
Yeah, and after Semi just this week, they had ice cream, hang out and ice cream. So just a way to connect with folks before they head off and make sure they're being connected and safe and that sort of thing. But again, just an example of the wide variety of ways that our SRO support. So that's Officer Tara, Officer Scola, and now Officer Brendan Chippering as well. And DA Tucker just could say enough things, positive things about the way we work. I think that's everything for tonight in the Smith report. Any questions?
About the bullying, maybe we should wait for Titus.
Titus, can you join us, please?
Just the idea of the process of reporting hurtful or bullying. I just wonder, like, how is there a guideline to that? Because there could be a lot of stigma attached to, say, like a kid who's being bullied or demeaned or whatever. There's a lot of stigma coming forward to a trusted adult.
Yeah.
Is there advice you give the students on how that works?
Yeah, so one thing that I mentioned in my presentation was that, basically it starts from the fact that every student has a right to feel safe and welcome in the building, and no student has a right to take that away from another student, right? And so what I let them know is that, I did have a whole slide and spend a little bit of time on my thoughts on a lot at the middle school. A lot of kids worried about snitching.
Yeah.
And I talked about my views on that word and how, for me, from 735 to 155, that's not going to be a word that's in their vocabulary when they're in the school, because it's implying that the person who's reporting and trying to address their concerns is doing something wrong. And that's not the case. So I wanted to set the expectation for the whole school that, that's just not a thing we're gonna do. People report and have a right to report. And we did talk a little bit about retaliation, and I explained what that was to them, that, if somebody does report it, that's their right, they can do that, and that the consequences for retaliating can be just as bad as for bullying, even if the original incident wasn't a bullying incident. If you retaliate because somebody reported it, there's large consequences that go along with that. So I wanted to set the tone for the whole school that what my expectations were about making people feel welcome, about how students should feel in the building, and that it is 100% appropriate and all right for a student to say, hey, it doesn't feel that way right now.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a first step, maybe like, say, peer to peer, saying, you know what? I found that hurtful, I don't wanna, bring this up to an adult, I'll give you the chance to apologize, is there any? kind of, like,
So we do a lot of that work, the conflict resolution happens with the guidance counselors.
Sure, I'm thinking more peer to peer.
Yeah, so one thing about the middle school level, developmentally, they don't necessarily yet have that skill set developed where they can do the problem solving interpersonal on their own. We really do encourage them to still involve an adult. Now, it may not be a disciplinary adult. That's why we have a lot of times these things start at the guidance office where we can run a mediation and have a conversation. It usually stems from some sort of misunderstanding.
Yeah,
A lot of, been doing middle school for 15 years now. Well, so-and-so said, you said, and it turns out nobody ever said anything, right? So, to get them in the room to just hear that face to
be a
face.
game of telephone.
Right, exactly. And, so we do encourage them to utilize all of the adults in the room. Not.
No mics, please, folks. You have a central mic.
Sorry, I lost my train of
Yeah, no.
potential.
But just essentially, there's a lot of ways for them to enter into those conversations without there being any risk of somebody getting quote unquote in trouble.
Sure, yeah, you'd like to see that avoided, if they can resolve it.
That's right, yeah.
ahead of time, yeah.
And we hope that they learn in those guided mediations, we hope that they learn those skills and develop them so that they can, by the time they're in 8th grade, moving on to the high school, they can have that conversation that you were saying, because that's ultimately the goal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Other questions? Right. I'm gonna ask you to go there with Kate.
Yeah.
You guys wanna slide down? And then try to make sure that we have a. See if they're- No, because I, there's. Mike, wave your hand. No, can't see you. So we're gonna start reading 3 to 8 MCAS study. Question.
There's feedback, someone's mic is on.
So to turn on volume and
Is it just a question?
done now, Molly. You can go now. Thank you, Principal Fuss.
Another job well done.
It's getting a hard question for you, okay? All right, so we'll do MCAS presentation, go over the results, but also just talk a bit about where we go from here. So let me pull up the presentation. There we go. So basically, the message is we have work to do. And the work is underway, it has been underway, and we've got to really stick with it. But at the same time, we have to really create some urgency. And have a sense of urgency. So what we're being really clear about, new this year, is that our goals for student achievement are to, on any measures we use, okay, to get to 80% of our students meeting and exceeding expectations, and 60 student growth percent or SGP. We see growth, we see that in MCAS specifically, but also see it in STAR and other ones, okay? Now, the achievement data we're currently using are DIBELS, which is English Language Arts, ENI, which is mathematics, STAR 360, ELA, and math. That's now through all schools, not preschool, MCAS, and then access for English learners. And I'll talk later about what really our goals is to increase, or I should deepen student learning, okay, and increase student achievement. Now, the goal is measured by the getting the 80% meets and exceed, or these tools that measure that, okay? But the goal isn't just to do well on tests. The goal is to engage kids and deepen their learning, okay? But we have measures of those things. These happen to be the measures, okay? The measures are commonly used across schools. The measures, one of them is required by the state, MCAS. But really, the intention here is deeper student learning, and then make sure by our measures, we're getting to these targets. 80% meets and exceeds expectations, and 60% on student growth. And Amy will take over from here and help share the data, okay? And then I'll wrap up the.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Because I read this information earlier today, and so these measuring platforms, are they pretty much the standard for what most schools are using these, some combination of these measurements?
They're using a variety of measurements.
Yeah.
DIBELS is very well, it's used very widely. Okay, STAR is becoming more widely used. Is widely used, so we can get state and national reference points on it.
Yeah.
Use that widely, but there's no MCAS is of course the one that was the part of the state. So so there's no like I would say there's a consensus of these are the best.
Yeah.
Okay, but we know that they're commonly used. They're research based, and they have, because of their breadth, they're norm. Okay. Part of what I'm trying to say is that we have to deepen student learning, but we have a measurements that will give us this that are standards based and they're aligned with state frameworks. Okay, so those are the best way of measuring if we're improving student learning.
Understood.
Just want to interrupt for 1 second, for the sake of the audience at home. You can introduce everybody.
Oh, great.
So I'm Amy Pascalis, assistant superintendent, and we have the elementary principals and middle school principals. So do you want to go down more?
Matt Fusco, principal of East Veterans Elementary.
Dan Jordan, the principal at Plum Cove Elementary.
Selena Immel, principal at West Parish.
Mike Titus, principal at O'Malley.
Hey, Robertson, curriculum and instruction coordinator at O'Malley.
And Jody Gianotti from Beaman is unable to be with us yet, but she's going to. So 2023 marks the return of the full accountability portion of MCAS. So I thought it was important to take a few minutes to go over what the accountability is. So it represents the return of full accountability since 2019. The MCAS looks at performance of the lowest performing student groups, progress towards improving targets, school and students group percentiles, overall classifications, and schools of recognition. So if we look at over time since 2019, when the last time the accountability system was fully in place, and then we had a little interruption with the pandemic. Last year they brought back just the accountability percentile, but this year they are looking at both the accountability percentile and progress towards targets. Okay. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes to explain what all that means. So the Massachusetts accountability system consists of two components. There's normative components, which is a measure of performance of all students in the school compared to other schools in the state that serve similar grades, and it's reported in a percentile between 1 and 99. The criterion reference component
measures a district or school's progress towards improving targets in a reported as a percentage. That's just student growth percentage. Okay.
Amy, quick question, are they being compared to, can you go back to that section?
Yeah.
Are they being compared to all schools or dark schools or?
So the normative is all schools across the state, but we will get into darts
Yeah, I saw that.
when we get towards the end. of
Okay.
this. Okay, so the Massachusetts accountability system consists of two components that measure performance of groups, schools, and districts on specific indicators. So they look at 5 indicators. One is achievement, student growth, high school completion, English learner proficiency, and additional indicators. Those additional indicators are things like chronic absenteeism, advanced coursework at the high school. So those are some things they look at. And are used to categorize schools and districts as required, requiring assistance, intervention, or not. So there's a range. So to start on the left, that would be a student broad comprehensive support, a school or district with broad comprehensive support, and then focused targeted support. Those are the two areas where DESE would say offer support and we need additional focus. And then schools not requiring assistance are limited to no, all the way up to schools and recreation. So now that we know that, our district, Gloucester Schools, is falling in the moderate progress towards goals. So as a district, not requiring assistance. Our elementary schools have had as mixed ratings last year. We have 2 schools that fell in the focused targeted support category, and then they ranged up throughout. Beeman and East Veterans fell into that category of focused targeted support. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means later. O'Malley fell into the substantial progress towards targeted goals. And I do want to note that the percentile ranking of O'Malley for the last 3 years was they were at 15, and they were at a point where they did require assistance from the state. Last year they were at 18 and they no longer required. This year they're at the 24th percentile, so showing some nice growth. Tonight's report is not about Gloucester High, but I thought the question would be asked since that was the only one not mentioned. They fell in the moderate progress towards targets.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask that question, Amy, the moderate progress towards goals for the district, that includes the high school?
Yes, that's the entire district is in moderate. High school also happens to be in moderate.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so this is ELA data, grades 3 through 8. And I have the last 3 years. It's supposed to say 22. But I want to point out a few things. So we have if we compare our district from last year to this year, we have 2 grade levels that kind of went in the wrong direction. 3rd grade and 8th grade. So that signals to us that we need to dive into, and the math coaches at the elementary level were diving deeply in, or this ELA and math coaches are diving into where that might happen. And I know find some joy in going into data, so I'm sure that's happening at O'Malley too. But some celebrations are at grade 4, 6, and 7 that has made some substantial progress towards their goals. Okay. Growth. So I want to talk a lot about growth because we're not going to move forward as a district unless we improve our growth, right? And we're not going to close achievement gaps without doing that. So when we look at English language arts, our student growth percentile, well, first, this is our subgroups. Our subgroups do not look so great when you look just at only 12% meeting or exceeding, or 20% for EL, right? For students with disabilities. I do want to point out that it is within range of what we're seeing across the state. So we do want those numbers to be higher. We want to see them higher in the state of Massachusetts, but we're focusing on Gloucester. We want to bring Gloucester up.
And just to highlight that the one that isn't circled there, which is EL or former English learners, is the one that is not sort of aligned with the state. It's quite a bit below the state. So, in terms of meeting expectations, the state percentage for EL for English learners is 20%. That's for. So these are, as Amy said, all these meeting exceedings for these subgroups aren't sufficient. 3 of them match what the state is, okay, or a little bit above the state, like ELs, it does not match the state.
But I want to focus us on the student growth. So I've talked before about the student growth percentile. A range from 40 to 50, they say, is average growth. 50 to 60 is higher growth. Anything over 60 is what it is, strong growth, right? So all of our numbers are falling in typical growth. So we're just moving forward. To really bring our scores up, we need to raise our student growth percentile. And here's a graph of showing our MCAS scores over time from 2017. You can kind of see we were on a nice vertical trend, and then the pandemic hit and we went in the other direction. We have come up a little, but that average growth, that 440 growth in the 40s, is almost too flat. We want to raise it up. And this is breaking it by all students, EL students, high needs, low income students with disabilities. And if we move into math, we see some similar trends. We have 3 areas that we are going in the wrong direction here. And then grades 4 and 7 had some nice growth. So we can dive into the data and see what's happening there and what we can do to remedy. When we look at our subgroups, again, the numbers of our subgroups are low. And they are similar to, in most cases, the state. But again, our student growth percentile is that average growth percentile. And we're gonna want it, we're gonna need it to be higher. And here's our trends for math. Again, the dip is obviously the pandemic. We started a little rebound last year. You need to have some more vertical growth here. Upward trends. For science, on the left-hand side, we have our 5th grade science scores, and the right is 8. That's the 2 years that it's given in grades 3 through 8. Oops. Again, we are EL learners is an area of concern, particularly 8th grade, with none of our students, the EL students in 8th grade, meeting or exceeding. Things that we've been presenting to you about looking at an EL curriculum, about having meetings, bi-monthly meetings with our EL teachers, and bringing in tools like elevations. These are things we have known are challenging, and we are working to remedy. It's not a quick fix. It's also, our EL population is also one of our fastest growing population subgroups. So it's something that we're definitely targeting and working towards.
Can I just ask one question? Is this a typo, or under 8th grade EL and former EL, it says 0 meeting and exceeding expectations in 2023?
It is not a tip, unfortunately.
Can you give me an idea of how many students are in that category? I mean, I know the percentage of our population is EL, but do we know in this?
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Are we talking like 100 kids, 50 kids?
Yeah, I remember just from the chart, I think from the last session. In the district, there's like 294 EL students.
Right, but this is a section of grades 3
Right.
through
Right.
8. So the number that are in each grade level, I could look that up. I don't have that.
I think
Probably in the
someone might be-
200s.
One of our people looking it up right now. Yeah, so remember, it's 8th grade ELs, so we'll get to the number, I think, momentarily.
I just want to say, there was, I think, a couple slides back when you were, this line graph.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah, I mean, on both of these for it's the math and the ELA, if I'm reading it correctly, the EL students, I mean, it looks like between during the pandemic, the decline there was was steeper than most.
It was on the
I'm
slide.
gonna go, yeah, I think it was.
This, this is a very steep, yes.
That was a huge decline for that population.
So,
Yeah, and that, I think, and then folks give up, is reflected or, you know, in terms of attendance.
Yeah.
In terms of disruption for learning, you know, and there were times, you know, that, I mean, this was related because I wasn't here yet, where, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, like, our EL learners just, you know, EL families were having such a difficult time, won't come to school, you know? And then that, it hasn't continued up to that level, okay, engaging the families much better, but it's been really hard for EL families, you know, for lots of families, okay? You know, because there are additional challenges in terms of language, in terms of, you know, just, you know, assimilation, in terms of just transition, this sort of stuff, and, you know, so there, I don't know if you want to add to that, but that reflects the reality we've experienced, you know, working with our families. It's been hard, very hard for them.
Yeah, I'd echo what superintendent said, was just once we went into remote, when we first went into the lockdown. The EL population was had a really hard time assimilating. You know, they were looking for some basic needs and that too for extended periods of time, so it was tough going.
just anybody that's learning a language, if they get off that horse, they are set back really hard.
Yeah.
And it's completely, you know, predictable. So, you know, there's gotta be a lot of like targeted intervention, you know, I don't know if anyone has a solution for that. It's pretty stark.
I would just say too, that we have new arrivals who did the pandemic in their home country, so I can speak to 2 students that we had that were in Brazil for most of the pandemic. Their schools in Brazil were mainly closed. They came with very big gaps in their learning from their home country into the middle of 4th grade, just in time that they arrived early enough that then, yes, they were required to take the ELA 5th grade exam, having arrived in the middle of 4th grade. So that's challenging.
If I remember correctly, didn't we go from like March to like months online? Not really having an online program,
March
it just
through
happened.
March
Yeah.
13th.
Yeah.
Not that I remember. It's your memory.
I certainly remember, I was home with kids.
So I don't know if we were sure that everyone had internet connection at that time.
Yeah, there's.
We're still handing out
We didn't have any
hotspots, we were doing all of that.
Yeah, so we probably lost a lot of.
Okay. He knows how many.
Yeah, just, in that year, that was 23 students that were ELs
In 8th grade.
in 8th grade that took that test.
So, and here's the kind we can point to that, you know, things were very difficult. There's all the things that we need to continue to do better. Okay, and part of that, like, first and foremost is the curriculum. Like, we haven't had an established curriculum for what we're teaching EL learners and the way we're teaching English learners, okay? And so, you know, folks know we've done a better job of connecting with families, supporting families, and now we have a better job of instruction. You know, and so that's, you know, we're starting a process, as you know, but really Gloucester hasn't had, we have not had, you know, consistent curriculum, consistent approaches. And that really makes it difficult for our teachers and our staff, and of course that makes it, you know, harder for our students.
We're a consistent staff. I mean, the 4 years that I've been on the committee, and I don't know how much we've built on our EL staff.
Built some definitely, but we've also had, like, the high school has been quite a bit of turnover, you know, just, of the limits that we have.
Yeah.
And so, but there's also another piece of this is our childhood English immersion. So at the high school specifically, and I think some of we have subject area teachers teaching students, English learners, and, you know, what's the support they're having, what's the curriculum they're having, to, you know, strategies to support their English learners who are in the classroom, you know, and the inclusion model. So that's, you know, that's all work that's on us to get better.
Is there state assistance on, would you say, our approach to how we have curriculum? How we kind of.
So we had tiered focus monitoring of our, program last year, and one of the findings was that we do not have a consistent curriculum, right? And that's why we're doing it. It's not the only reason why we need one, but we're piloting 2 different curricula to adopt one by the middle of the year, so that we will have a consistent support of EL students from K to 12. So we're on that. And we talked about professional development yesterday. There were several offerings for SEI strategies for teachers, but also for teachers. I had one teacher, EL teacher at the elementary level, told me she said she's never had that much professional development in her subject, and she was able to have a whole day of focusing on EL strategies and how to support learners. So this is not an area that has been really developed in the past. Our population has, what did we say in the enrollment report, almost tripled. Yeah.
Over 10% this year.
It's grown exponentially. We have done a really good job working to stay connected with our families and have them be part of our community. But what we've been lagging is the curriculum and to support them. And that is what we are working very hard this year and moving forward to make sure that we are doing that. So it's absolutely a focus, but it's not something we're gonna fix right away. It's gonna take some time.
I remember from the last meeting, I don't know if it was a statewide metric or like average, but an answer I got back was it takes 6 years for an English language learner to actually, and I'm looking at these 8th graders and they have 4 years to catch up and they're at 0.
It takes 6 years for them to gain language proficiency if they're growing at a typical rate. So if you throw in a pandemic, if you throw in that they have any other thing, it could slow that. So the ideal or the target is to gain language proficiency in 6 years.
Yeah, and if a student comes in at grade 8 from say Brazil or whatever, there should be an accelerated program in my mind to take care of those students rather than whatever we're doing that ends up taking 6 years.
So the newcomer curriculum is meant to give them those foundations, but it still will take time.
Yeah.
And there's like academic fluency, okay, and there's engaging, effective in class, like different things. Okay, meaning actually very quickly, our students, are learning enough English to be in class and function in class, sort of stuff, but that's different than academic fluency. Okay, so when we say 6 years or so to develop that very high level, okay, that doesn't mean that I want to give these students a lot of credit because they quickly learn, with the support of our teachers and our staff to function well. But that still isn't, that doesn't, the difference between functioning and learning in class and having, passing tests on academic fluency, learning things.
So we've determined that it takes 6 years. Other districts, I'm assuming would say the same.
That's what I was wondering.
That's the state, that's
Okay.
what the access scores of this.
So the state is involved in this conversation and knows it takes approximately 6 years. However, there's no waiver or adjustment to the MCAS, knowing they're taking the test maybe twice within that 6-year period.
The adjustment is if they are new to this country,
I think it's a
they
year,
get
right?
1 year to not take the ELA, but they do have to take it.
But it takes 6 years to get proficient. So, I'm sorry, common sense.
That's what I'm saying, we need other
It just
solutions.
doesn't make
So
sense.
to rely on what the state says we should be doing or what their metrics are, or do we have to come up with our own solutions?
So the state will also set performance targets for subgroups, so that's that other category that Amy was talking about, so. What they would probably say is, we're setting realistic targets for where we would want them to be. And access also comes into play, which is actually more about their language acquisition. So there are, Superintendent Moses' point prior, that there's a lot of different things that they're looking at into the accountability piece, but
So they're looking at it, but we're branded by lower MCAS scores. Oh, Gloucester schools are lousy because look at their MCAS scores, right?
Yeah.
So they're not looking at what we're talking about and what the state's trying to
Right.
achieve. So the messaging is just really lousy on this.
It's complicated, and but also, to go with the targets, so when it said Gloucester School is making moderate progress towards target, so we might not be at proficient yet, but we're making moderate progress to go there, you know.
Yeah,
O'Malley is showing some growth and they're making substantial progress, right? We want to get all get up to that level, but, yeah. To keep it in perspective, and I didn't realize how small it would be when I put it up there. I have this screenshot of Gloucester in comparison to the its dark districts. And if you dive in a little deeper, even though it feels grim and what we talked about, is we are, for most of them, in the mid-range, or if not above the mid-range. If you compare our scores with those scores within our dark districts, they have like population.
And just to remind folks, yeah, just you're getting there, is that our dark districts are ones who are most similar to us, the group of districts, sorry, that Jesse's determined are most similar to Gloucester in terms of demographics, income, ability to pay, and so, you know, the resources that are at the district's disposal, as well as the students that are in front of them. Okay, so this is probably the like apples to apples comparison in terms of districts, the best one we have. And then, as Amy said, you know, we're sort of middle of the pack here. We want to be better than middle of the pack, to be honest. Okay, we need to be better. Our students and our families, you know, deserve that, expect that from us. So, but this just helps with perspective, you know, in terms of, you know, and then in the broader picture of where we are.
So some good news. And one of the additional indicators, one of the additional indicators that we talked about is the absenteeism rate. So we have exceeded our target in every area for decreasing, it's a funny way to say it, we've exceeded in decreasing our chronic absentee rate in all areas. So that is one of our strongest areas. It is definitely a celebration to go from 28.5 of all students chronically absent down to 19.4. However, in 2019, I believe we're at 10. So we're not done improving. We need to continue with that. So it is a great improvement, but we still have a ways to go. Absenteeism is certainly remains a focus. Every day matters to come to Gloucester Public Schools. We will keep on with that campaign. It is very important that we celebrate this, but we continue to improve. Okay.
I think, can you just on this, if you see target there, okay, it's sort of the columns of target, you'll see that, you know, Desi's setting targets for us and other districts in terms of what the change should have been. So they were expecting us for 28.5, I put down to 27.5%, okay? And we went down to 19.4%, okay? So the thing to keep in mind is we're setting targets, Desi's setting targets for us, and that's really what they're, one of the ways they're looking at, are we making the sufficient progress or satisfactory progress, okay? So it's not, I mean, it's I think more realistic than in the past, but it's also helpful for us to understand those targets and understand that what, you know, what they mean in time. So it just shows you, you know, what a target looks like. They do the same thing in terms of academic achievement.
And just on that, for the absenteeism, which is good news, do we have a comparison to other districts? As far as not the targets based on our percentages, but you know, where are other districts on this, especially our dark districts?
I could get
Yeah,
for dark districts, yeah.
Because, you know, just to compare how we're doing compared to that.
That would be nice.
And some takeaways and next steps. Tier 1 instruction, we continue to make sure our Tier 1 instruction and strengthen it. We have several curriculum adoptions across the district that you have heard about. Some are further along than others. We continue to have a math pilot that we are hoping to finish up by mid-year or very soon at O'Malley. So we continue to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction. Something else that we have done this year, particularly at our elementary level, but also at our middle school, is to protect that Tier 1 instruction. And if you think of our EL population that has not been able to perform as high in science, we're protecting so that they are in class now for that kind of not getting pulled out. So we want to give them access to be inside the classroom for tier 1 instruction for all of our students. So that has been a change as well. And we're hoping that that will be helpful. We are setting goals across the district, as Superintendent Thomas told you that we are looking to have 80% of students meeting or exceeding with a 60% student growth percentile. That is not going to happen overnight, but that is something that we are incrementally going to chip away at and work towards. It is the long game. Implementation of newly revised, you make fun of me because I'm so excited about it, but the district curriculum accommodation plan, the district DCAP that every district has to have. In many districts, it's a dusty little piece of paper that is on a shelf, but last year we revised it with the committee, made a one-page copy that every teacher now has in that classroom. And it is accommodations that can happen to all students, whether they're on a 504, IEP, or regular EL, anything. And so we really are trying to strengthen what is available to our tier 1 students and then therefore all of our students. Achievement gaps, we continue to work to improve the use of data to identify areas of strength and apply lessons learned to areas of weaknesses. So we're diving deep into the data to see where we can target interventions and support students. The multi-tiered systems of support, we're working to strengthen it at the elementary level, and also it is about in year 2, I think, at O'Malley with the intervention math and literacy classes, 2 or 3 maybe. But we're looking to strengthen those opportunities to really give students tier 2 instruction and so forth. And we are really focusing on specific focused EL curriculum and implementation of SEI strategies across the district to support our ELs learners. Our chronic absenteeism has improved beyond the state targets, but we are not at pre-pandemic rate. So we will continue to work with that. We continue to have attendance teams at every school, as well as a district-wide attendance team that will focus on improving our attendance rate. And you saw a nice example of that, of the breakfast at O'Malley, rewarding students. And then I think Superintendent Lamas wanted to take the slide.
Yeah, just to wrap things up, and some of this will be repetitive, but it's worth saying. So first and foremost, the focus is on learning. Deeper student learning, okay? We measure that through various assessments. And so while I want to separate goals and measurement, okay? The goal is definitely deeper student learning. More engaged learners, learning meaningful things, okay? So when we talk about, O'Malley students outside of the track, and the design process, the test and iterate and model, in a corporate scale and build sales, okay? That's high quality engaged learning, okay? They will remember those things and learn them first of all well. They'll remember them for a long time. That's the type of instruction learning what to do. That's deeper student learning, okay? But we only have certain ways of measuring that depth, okay? And that's through MCAS, and that's through DIBELS, that's through STAR 360 and Access. And so that's how you assess whether you're making progress in the goal. Right? But what we don't want to do is become it's just real balance. I don't know how to say it other than that. It's just real balance between understanding that the goal is learning, the deeper student learning, but the measurements are these things that we use every time. Okay, and they help us, especially because a number of them are tied to our state standards. Okay, they help us understand where we're doing well and where we have to double down. Really, to work harder and work better to make an impact. Okay? But we never want to say our goal is scores. Okay, our goal is learning. Okay, it's measured by assessments. Okay, those assessments indicate to us that we're doing well and we need to work. Okay, so it's at both those things. Okay, they exist. There's got to be urgency. There is urgency. There needs to be continue to be urgency. But it needs to be urgency. It's across everybody. Okay? So all leaders, all educators, our staff must recognize that we need to do better for our students. Okay, and the time is now. We've been working very hard. We've been working in a lot of ways. We have to keep that up. really have to improve our curriculum, our instruction, our special education and English learner practices. You know, we are doing the right things on this. We have more professional development, better professional development than we had maybe forever. Okay, it's hard to say that. Okay, I've been here forever. But I'm confident that we're supporting our paraprofessionals, we're supporting our, like Amy was describing, our English learner, English EL teachers that we have. Still ways to go. And the other piece is we all have to set goals and annual goals and targets. Okay, and that means that, you know, teachers, grade levels, departments, okay, schools, because we'll only get to 80% meets and exceeds or 60 SGP by making steps every year. Okay, and so by setting a target and working for that target and understanding, you know, through analysis, student data, and understanding of, you know, conversations among what we see our students doing and not doing, we've got to work diligently towards those annual targets. Okay, making progress every year on those annual targets gets us to our ultimate goals. Okay. But we have to set those out. And the principals are working with the teams to do that. At the same time, though, match urgency is patience. As Amy has said, this is tricky. You know, we want to go to make progress, and we have to act urgently, but we also have to do that over time. And that's the only way to do it. There are going to be ups and downs. You know, any improvement of any schools happens in a sawtooth pattern. Okay, it needs to be going up, but it's going to go up like this. Okay, over multiple years. So it's not to get too distracted by, you know, 1 year this or 1 year that. But it does mean we have to keep at it and stay focused on our efforts that we're implementing across our schools now, that our teachers and our staff, and our leaders are all doing. I really believe we're doing the right things. We have to keep at them, and probably be a little more tough-minded about where our progress is and where our challenges are. So it's balancing a lot of pieces here, but it's got to be focused on learning, and really high quality instruction. Got to be urgency, and also has to understand that having to do time. A lot of talent and leadership in the room here. I'm happy to answer questions from the committee members.
So I completely hear what you're saying about, you know, this takes time and yet it's urgent. I just want to push back a little bit, because this is disappointing, right? These are very disappointing numbers. And I just want to sort of name that. And, you know, this is my 4th year on the committee. First 2 years were COVID, but there's been so much creative education. You know, there's been so much creativity in the curriculum. There's been so many innovations that we've been putting in. And I sort of want to understand, like, what's happening in the sense, like, I understand, like, you know, COVID was an enormous issue. We continue to have attendance issues. EL students are certainly struggling based on these numbers. But given sort of all the attention we've given to a sense of belonging, focus on social emotional supports, like, you know, I'm not saying it happens in 4 years or my 4 years, but these numbers below 50% meeting and exceeding expectations. I mean, it's just extremely disappointing. And you once said to me, Ben, you know, it's like a giant ship. It's like, you know, it doesn't move like this, right? Everyone moves together and moves the ship. But what else can we do to move the ship? Like, where else are we? I mean, I know professional development is happening at these really high levels, but there's something that's not happening yet. And there may not be an answer to this question, but it is, it's frustrating. And our students, you know, really deserve to be learning at, you know, at the level that they can meet. And I just want to know, is there more that we can do?
Let me say a couple things, and I'm happy to chime in if you want. No, I think it's really clear. We have work to do. We absolutely do. Okay, we have progress to make. You know, this is a challenge about urgency and patience. Is I hear you there, or you're right, we're doing some really important things, okay? And we haven't been doing them for that long. Okay, in terms of kitchen practices, in terms of wit and wisdom, in terms of, the work at O'Malley, which frankly, the academic instructor work there was ignored for years. And that means supporting teachers to improve their practice. What I mean, it's not that people aren't working hard, okay, and aren't working as best they can, okay? So, but it's about support that we provide each other in teams, but also support we provide in terms of, curriculum reviews and leadership, that sort of stuff, resources, okay? So, but, it does seem like in some ways a long time. But I would say actually we're in the beginning, honestly. Now, but the message from me and from our leaders, and I think from the staff and others, has got to be themselves, it's got to be, yeah, we got to start improving. We need to see the measurements that show us how we're doing on learning improve, okay? Because learning has to. Okay? But I really get the urgency, I get the impatience. If we weren't doing the right things, I would tell you that. But we have to become more diligent about it. We have to become more sort of, I think I've become more, not only purposeful, but like, oh, we've got to really, get at it, basically. And that's got to be across the board, right? Ultimately, as adults, we're responsible for the kids who show up in front of us, okay? And so it isn't about where they come from or who they are, or who their parents are. It's got to be what we can control, okay? And that's difficult, but folks have done it. We can do it, and we really need everyone to believe that and to and to operate that way in terms of being tough mind about it, and not and when we see things we don't think are good enough, not accept it. I don't know if folks want to add to that, or don't feel like need to, but
I would say that I think that it's almost a two-pronged approach. We haven't had high quality instructional materials, curriculum in all areas for a long time. I mean, we had some, but we didn't, at O'Malley, we didn't have it 3 years ago. We just did. And at the elementaries, we had Reading Street, but that was outdated, so we're bringing in things. So one step is to bring in a nice high quality instructional material, right? But a box curriculum is not going to fix this. Box curriculum is going to help. It's going to guide us. It's going to keep us all unified and on track. But the other part is we need to bring up instructional practice, and that's where professional development comes in. And so between the marriage of the two, that's the goal, is to raise up the district with both of those in place. There's not one fix without the other. We need both to bring us up. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I talked to you about bringing in new curriculum. It takes good 3 to 5 years to see progress on that, right? We're along the same lines, we're bringing up instructional practice. So, wit and wisdom is probably the oldest one that we have here, and we're in really year 2 of implementation. For some teachers, year 1, right? O'Malley's Amplify ELA, they're in year 1. The MAP is still in the pilot process. So the curriculum is getting into place. Instructional practice is also being focused on. I know it's a big focus at all the schools. So when Superintendent Lemma says that we're in the beginning, it feels like we've been here for a long time, but we've been going through a pandemic, and we've been doing it, we loved these kids, and now we are ready now, and we are at the beginning. And to me, it's kind of exciting to be at a point where we could be at the beginning of that, and we can raise up. So that's all.
How often do we do DIBEL testing per year? Is it once a year or?
No, so there's benchmark testing at the
Right.
beginning of the year, middle of the year, and
And what about?
wait a minute, we also do progress monitoring.
Yeah.
That depends on where the student is. If the student's at where they need to be and they're green, it's monthly. For students of concern, it's more often.
And what about the staff?
SARS 3 times a year too, and like we said, progress monitoring throughout. Some schools do every month, some schools do every 2. We also don't want to over test, right? So some schools spread it out every other month for the start.
So we have a program subcommittee, right? And I don't feel like we're getting enough information regarding our programs from that committee, right? So I think it's something to look at and move forward. Like, we have certain topics that are standing on our agendas for different subcommittees, and to me, this should be one, right? It's been here a long time, and I've been hearing how we're gonna do this, and it's gonna get better, and it hasn't yet, and I've been here a long time. So how can we, as a school committee, see the progress as opposed to once a year or twice a year? How can we keep it a topic of conversation and get the results from the STAR and the DIBELS every couple months at like the program subcommittee, which gets brought up to the full committee, so that we know? We do expect the ups and downs, but I feel like we're not talking about it enough. We have wonderful programs now. We've invested in curriculum, which is the best choice we've ever made, in my opinion. But now let's get that momentum going and talk about it so that we all know about it. And when people stop us on the streets, or parents or residents ask us about MCAS and why our scores aren't so great, we can respond very quickly with up-to-date data, knowing we've gotten a report every month or two per program coming up to the.
So I just wanna.
Because I know we're doing all the testing, but we don't hear the results.
Remember though, you're getting, we come to school committee,
Yeah.
elementary and middle, twice a year we STAR. Okay, so the only time we're not reporting STAR is the first admission, first one of the beginning of the year, okay? And that's really used to identify where kids are, and so we can group them for intervention, that sort of thing. So you get that twice a year, and we're only doing 3 times a year. Okay, that's for K through 8, K through 8, and then you're also getting MCAS, which is so it's that's the summative at the end of the year. So that's 3 times a year. Okay, that's across the 10 months. And then high school is just starting STAR this year. So we haven't really talked about them coming, but But I don't think. So I think it's getting quite regular, and if we're doing 3 times a year, you're getting 3 reports. This sort of thing. So. I don't think we want to do it more, because what happens then is we need teachers looking at data very regularly. Okay. If we're reporting that more regularly into the prior to the school committee, then it can be about the scores. Okay, it's got to be about the learning. Okay, and the score, of course, can measure that learning, right? And again, it's a balance there. Too much focus on reporting publicly, and get it to it's about the scores. And I'll just say it for myself, we need the teachers and the staff working together, and coaches, curriculum coordinators, Amy, looking at the data and adjusting instruction. Okay, so that's how I would just sort of push back.
And my final question is, so you've identified needing the EL curriculum. Have you identified any other type of curriculum we should be looking at? I mean, I know we have a lot of new going on now, but is there another area that we should be looking at?
Well, we revised Math and Focus within the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We just implemented it in Wisdom.
O'Malley.
ELA, Airplay ELA, we're working on math. O'Malley's social studies teachers are starting to look at their curriculum. The state has come out with a health curriculum yet, because the other two are already behind.
And then with science, of course, with our science
Science.
coordinator the first time.
Yeah, the science coordinator.
She's leading, she's helping all teachers, 3 through 8 really. So that's and that's brand new in a way. I think one of the places, the high school and there, the way the high school works is through their chart leader team and the program leaders, or the second department heads. So that could be a place where we're seeing more. That's more transparent. What they've been doing. We're doing quite a bit of work on that over the years, both on curriculum development, but also on curriculum coordination within departments, and then also on instructional practices. One place that's of note there that could be looked into is how are they using common assessments within, right? Because that's another way of learning how different students are doing across teachers across the whole subject. That might be one, but doing a lot.
Doing a lot. And then
Touching a lot of the base.
I've been talking to Andrea Perella about some preschool curriculum as well, so, but remember that other part is the instructional practice, right? And that takes time with the professional development, it takes time through setting expectations for, you know, what does instruction look like in Gloucester Public Schools, what does it look like in a math classroom versus a socialist classroom or whatever, and so that's gonna take time, and, those are all things that we're working on.
I think the last piece to add this is then holding folks accountable to making those improvements on instructional practice, like, you know, so, I mean, so for example, Win Wisdom, okay? And these folks are very involved in this, you know, or Amplify, you know, ELA is, you know, we have the curriculum, these instructional practices we're using, okay, and I won't, you know, variety of techniques, are then those happening with Fidelity? And are they happening, you know, are they happening in classrooms? And you gotta, and these folks, Amy and are responsible for making sure that not only is it people are supporting and learning it, but it's clear what the expectations are, and then also following through on it. Okay? And that's a key piece, because it's not enough for you know, the materials to be there, support on what instructional practices are, and then maybe or maybe it doesn't happen.
Is
That's
that,
not good enough.
is that through observation?
It's through observation, but it's also through just general walkthroughs.
Well,
Sometimes,
that's.
yeah, but well,
Formal
some,
and informal.
yeah, some walkthroughs are just informational and some are more formal where they're an observation. But we introduce walkthroughs at the elementary level in October, and we'll be continuing that throughout. And I know O'Malley, Mike and both Kate are doing learning walks throughout O'Malley as well. So those are things that are new, I think, at all, or newer to be consistent at all.
So they part of the professional goals at the beginning of the year, the discussion that the.
So
teaching
learning
staff
walks
has.
or,
No. The work that we're doing with the curriculum, the accountability and the.
I believe so.
So for the principals, for the elementary principals, one of the principals, this was for last year, but it continues, is, you know, knowing wit and wisdom, being involved in wit and wisdom training, working with their coaches on wit and wisdom implementation, so they know what it is and they know what to look for. And then earlier this year through the learning walks, there's another way to get them, you know, sort of, you know, fully, you know, not up to speed, but you know, just a little more fluid in what to look for, what to expect.
Bill,
No, go ahead.
you were first. Phyllis, go for it.
So
I think I remember it, that's why.
I don't want to repeat my colleagues have certainly done a good job expressing some things. I think one of the things that's important to me is, I think my experience in the business world, and I think I used to run a big factory and 100 people under me. And management came out with the KPI board. You know, there's the key performance indicators. I was like, oh, I hate this stuff. And I always thought, well, and I had shift supervisors, all that kind of stuff. And what I realized is, at the end of the day, it's a people business. Education is a people business. I like to think, you know, I didn't get elected because I'm the smartest person on the board, but I'm pretty good with people, generally speaking. And I sometimes think it's undervalued, the relationship that as school leaders that you have with your staff, to motivate your staff, to, you know, drive them to, hey, collectively, we're in this together. And I don't want to unsell that. The data is what it is. It's important, and I think it has to be looked at. Obviously, the measuring sticks are important. But at the end of the day, it's the connections that, you know, you make with your staff, that Ben makes with you as principals, and that collectively, we are all in it together to say, you know, what are we delivering every day? Not just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every day. So I guess that's I'll get off the soapbox, but I think it's important that we all kind of keep that in mind. That if we're gonna make progress, yeah, we can track everything. I'm a huge fan of wit and wisdom and all that good stuff. But if we're not doing it on a personal people level, I'm not sure we get there. So I think that's important. The note, so from not the sharpest tool in the shed. That's it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a real combination there, you know, and there's, you know, we're just talking today with all the principals, you know, this is, you know, in order to be a really good teacher, you have to really know social emotional skills. You gotta be able to tap in not only to your students, but also colleagues, right? You know, and if you're not tapping into what your students need, what's important to them, and how they respond, you know, then, I mean, that's hard business, with hard business, okay, in that way, we're in that way. You know, at the same time, for too long education, it was like, we think they're doing okay, we think they're improving, we think they're learning, okay, and, you know, our judgment on that as human beings isn't always clear. Okay, and so in addition to all that expertise and wisdom that any of our teachers and our staff bring, you know, that does need to be supplemented with some real data about their learning. You know? And so there's a real balance there. And it's not a balance that I don't put out lightly. You know? But you know, if we aren't looking at some of that data and studying it and learning and seeing what it teaches us and what it points us to, what questions it makes us ask, and you know, we just know that, you know, from, you know, that our perception is clouded. You know, as human beings, it isn't always clear, right? And things are hidden. You know, not purposefully, but because you don't see everything. And that's sometimes you don't see from the quiet kids, or you get, or it's hidden by the kids who are, you know, really just outspoken or articulate. You know, and you know, we have to make sure we're paying attention to all kids.
I don't
Definitely
want certainly don't want anyone around the table to think, I think the world of all of you, I think you do a very good job. Leave it at that.
So I echo Laura's sense of urgency, and I'm curious, you know, as Ben said, this is, I think, sort of data based on sort of a moment in time tests. It's a moment in time. It doesn't really necessarily always reflect learning that's happening in our building. And just knowing as being a parent, I know parents are really underselling the importance of this test. I know that for a fact. Parents are saying this is just a test. Don't worry about it. No big deal. So I'm curious from everybody at the table, if this is really a good indication of the work that's happening in our building, when we have a lot of other data, right? So we have data that's happening much more regularly that we're paying very closely attention to. And again, this is a moment in time. This is a test that seems like it's a very big deal, but we have a lot of other sort of key points to pay attention to. Do you think that this is a good indication of the learning that's happening in our building? And do you also think that it's reflective of the other data that we have? And that's a really big question.
So STAR 360 has different levels that it has national norms and state norms. When we use the state norms are higher than higher expectations. And we have found that the state norms of STAR 360 is closer to MCAS. It's not an exact match, but MCAS is a moment in time. And it's a moment in time that happened last May, right? And we're talking about it now in November, right? So the action on May to November is a big weight, right?
And you have a third grade, and the next time you're assessing that same group of students
is a year later.
Right.
So it is a moment of time. It's important to notice it and look for trends and have it be part of the data we look at. But the on-the-ground benchmark testing that we do, and we can do progress monitoring for DIBELS for students in concern. Some of them we're doing every 2 weeks, right? That's more actionable. And we can take that data and make an instructional plan. We can change our instruction. We can speed it up or slow it down or give a different method of instruction if needed. So MCAS is a moment in time. It is important to look at. That's what our state judges, you know, our schools and our districts by. But the more actionable data is that our own benchmark data. And I'm excited that we have the same, you know, tools, you know, I'll start on K, but 1 through 12. We can watch a student's grow now with STAR 360 all the way through. And, we can go back and kind of track that, see what interventions that student had, or what worked or what didn't work. So we're getting more things in place. So I don't know if that answers your question, but MCAS is a point, it's a one data point.
Yeah, and I guess I like the word actionable, right? Because nobody's sitting down with a parent and saying like, hey, this is what we learned about your kid from MCAS versus all the other data that we collect, right? Here's what we're learning about your kid. Here's what we think this kid needs. Here's what we're doing about that.
But so MCAS can help with when, so our coaches, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, dove into, I know the elementary math coaches dove right into the data, and they were like, wow, these standards we really hit, these standards we did not hit. So that data, that information we can take from that test and say, okay, in third grade, majority of our students did not get this standard right on MCAS.
Yeah.
Let's look at our instruction and let's make sure that it is appropriate for that standard. Let's make sure our assessment for that standard is there and that we know that our students know that standard before moving on. So it is very helpful in that.
Yeah.
When you look at, are we teaching the standards and the majority of our students get them? And in some cases, there were celebrations, and in some cases there was like, wow, we've got some work to do, right? And we are so fortunate, thank you to all of you, to have coaches and curriculum coordinators and people that can do the work to dive into that and to really find those trends and then make recommendations for instruction.
I would just add to that, I mean, I know there's a heavy focus on MCAS, that was what the majority of the data was, but the attendance piece, I think, should not be overlooked at how significant that is, because it doesn't matter how good the instructional practices are, and it doesn't matter what the curriculum is, because if the kid's not in the classroom, they're not learning. And so that, to see that improvement, again, I'm new to this table, right? So, but to see that improvement is very promising, but I think where some of the urgency doesn't get seen is the work that people are doing day to day to get those kids to want to be in the building, right? Where, to your point about it being a people business, taking that time to form the connections with the student counselors, with the teachers, again, to be there. When you see that increase, right, it's very promising, but we also need to remember that that doesn't get into just how chronic those students were absent, right? It just means it could have been 18 days and they were right on the cusp. They may have missed 45 days, right? Which is almost a whole marking period. So there are these, while that's a huge improvement, and I definitely want to undersell it, because it might take a little bit of time to see that translate into an academic test, because now those kids have gaps and that was just the 1 year change, never mind how often they just logged into a Zoom and walked away when they were at home, right? So, those, I think, to your point, like MCAS, I do think is a good measurement of some aspects of school. But I really don't want to undersell that improvement in attendance and the, 1 to 2 to maybe 3 year impact that will have as, we as the building leaders and our staff continue to get kids to want to be there. That's the real key to unlocking all the learning.
So just to come back, I see Matt's here, I know Jody's not, but we never came back to why being in these vets are in need of focused, targeted support and nowhere else in the district.
Yeah, so they had subgroups that fell in the lower percentage in comparison to similar subgroups across the state. And as a result of that, and I actually said I was going to get to it later, and I didn't, I apologize. We have been, and it's coming up later in the packet, we've been awarded a grant. It's called the TAG grant. We had it a few years ago when Gloucester High and Ely were in a similar situation. But it's for $50,000 and give us ability. We're going to be providing extra support for students through tutoring and through we're going to be developing ILTs, instructional leadership teams, to work on bringing up that instructional practice. And we'll fund some of that. We'll have a consultant come in. We have some other things that we're going to be able to do with that money. Our coaches and our principals are looking at those students that really need that extra little push that might be on the cusp and really target students that we can really push to raise them up. So the good out of it is we have this grant too, we can do some nice things that wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. The change in the, state system of support, SSOS, so it's, when, a few years ago when the high school and O'Malley were there, it was solely to be spent on the school that needed it. Now it is more of a district perspective, where it is given to the district and we use it as we need it. We have to make sure that those two schools, Beaman and East Veterans, are majorly beneficial to it, but we also can help out other schools to make sure that they have access and support as well. So I don't know if that's a good thing, but it's a help to
that
have us
explains-
respond to these ratings.
And I just want to say, like, to your point, Bill, and to what you're saying, like, as a parent, I'm sometimes in the school as a volunteer, and like, I see so many like deep and positive relationships all the time, like everywhere. And I've been the parent asking for the progress report, and I've seen the graphs, and how, you can, the monitoring and the Star 360 and Dibbles, like, there is, I feel so strongly that our children, at least at the elementary level, that's all I know personally, they are tracking, right? They are tracking and they're able to act. I mean, you are able to act quickly when you see something. And I find that incredibly impressive. And I also see all the relationship building and all the fun that happens in the buildings. And so that's part of my frustration. Like, I see so much positive. And I see so much learning and I see so much engagement. And it's just hard to sort of hold it all.
I want to thank Mike and Kate and Matt and Dan and Lena. I don't get you over there. Schools are complicated places, complicated people, that's the adults and the kids, right? And takes really strong and really talented, leaders to support those folks getting better at their work. And from day one since I got here, I'm really thought that they're really blessed with very good school leaders, capable, caring folks, and we have new folks added to that mix, both of them. And, so it's a privilege to work with these folks, and I know that they care deeply about their students, they care deeply about their student learning, and they care deeply about their staff and supporting them to be better and better. And their staff feel the same way. So again, we've got work to do, and we're heading in the right direction. We're doing the right work, and we've got to stick with it. And learning will continue to deepen, and kids will continue to be engaged, and the kids who don't yet feel like they really have a place, we'll do that for them and with them. And our schools are good, and we're getting better. We'll be better. Folks, it's been really nice.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks all. Yeah, coming.
Thank you for coming.
That's too good.
Okay, so we will move on to action. And we have some grants to accept. One is, I'll move that we accept the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education supporting student social emotional learning, behavioral and mental health and wellness through multi-tiered systems of support continuation grant in the amount of $52,449.
Second.
Is that what you were just talking about?
No,
That's
No,
that's
okay.
no. This is one of Amy Camp's grants. It's support. So Lynn Lyons, who was here last year, continues to do clinical consults for their clinical staff. It also will fund, a health and SEL committee to work on the work that Amy Cam is doing to support our students.
One more,
Maybe not much.
Yeah.
one more piece to add is, Lynn Lyons, who I think folks who saw her present, and that's about skill building around anxiety and stress, okay, as opposed to saying like, instead of avoidance, okay? It's something that Amy and our, I've been leading our clinical staff for 2 years now, third year? Yeah, it's the third year, I think. Lynn Lyons is also, now doing monthly consults with teams, and for a family, who may also have additional services in other providers in the city. So Lynn is sort of, team convenes to work with the family and Lynn Lyons. And so that's about skill building for the family, but also a real sort of multi-agency approach to support families as well. And it's built on this approach, which we know about. So that's a very powerful piece that we've added. The other thing I want to add was Larry Lamb earlier. Like Lynn Lyons last year, Larry, actually a colleague of Larry, Dr. Stuart Alblon, will be presenting to families later in the school year as well. Also around, I'll just say it this way, if I had learned from Lynn Lyons and Dr. Alblon when my kids were a lot younger, I was a better parent. Right. Definitely room to grow, for sure.
Better do a lot of promoting.
Yeah. We'll need help on our channels, but also your channel and your networks, so make sure we get it.
Seats for the school committee.
What's that?
The seats for the school committee.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay, I move that we approve the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Targeted Assistance Grant in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
Right, this is what you were
This
talking
is the
about.
one.
Okay, any questions, discussion?
I don't know.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Unanimous, okay, next grant, I move that we approve the ECCF addendum for additional items to complete the installation of machines in the Gloucester High School CBTE machine shop in the amount of $5,936.
Second.
Brenda,
So traditionally, so what happened was we ordered the machines and it comes with software to run them. Traditionally, the model for software has changed. So now we have Adobe software that has a monthly cost. I'm just saying that on the outside, generally speaking. So the software was purchased, but now there's that added layer that the student workstations need a dongle for it to work, which was not the way it was the last time the software was upgraded. So Mass Hire stepped in and said, listen, we'll get you those dongles for the student workstation so they can break. All he had was the teacher. They gave him one. So that way all the students can do their 3D, their SolidWorks, their software, and then they can actually bring it to the machines to make the parts. So that's what that rent is.
Yeah, so
Great.
software companies are moving towards subscription and that just threw everything.
Well, I gave that as an example,
Yeah,
that they're doing that on for everybody in the industry.
yeah, I know.
But in the machines context, their software needs that added extra piece to run.
Amazing.
and you are right, subscription based.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At least CNC machines or 3D printers or what?
we got 2 lathes, CNC milling and a knee mill. So this would be for the knee mill software. And it has the new one has 3 axis. And I call it 3D, but that's wrong. That's wrong, but it's 3 axes. So it's, X, Y, Z for what it's worth.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, Melissa's picked up. Okay,
Here's the best one tonight.
okay. Approval, I move that we approve and accept donations from local businesses for the Gloucester High School CBTE shop uniform t-shirts. Second.
What do you mean?
I read that. I read this one.
You need pictures.
Oh, you
have
got pictures?
pictures?
Okay, okay,
Of course. We have plenty of pictures.
yeah, just
This is
front.
the-
Oh, wow.
T-shirts.
We did, two were students designed and two were throwbacks
Oh,
from an earlier time. So these are the front pocket section of the shirts specific to each program. So we're kind of branding the shops a little bit.
Want to talk about though how this came about? 'Cause it's a
So,
great partnership and there's a lot of people who are stepping up.
yes, from day one, I'm going back to the beginning, Rod Nation wanted uniforms from the shop. By the time I got acclimated and we got to the uniform topic, we're coming on April, May, and we said, you know what, let's shelve it till we have enough money. Tim Sanborn picked up the ball with Steve Buckley in the chamber.
Yeah, Tim Marcus Building Center.
No, from, Kaysville Solar.
Cause roofing,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
cause roofing. But Tim Huff
Tim C.
gave $500.
Tim's.
Yeah, so what they did was, canvass very, casually to get money, and they said, well, let's give businesses an incentive. And what we did was we tailored the shirts. So these partners that were developing these partnerships for these kids to go on work study reflect what's going to be the logos on their specific shirt. So one of them, is Gorton's of Gloucester. We're working on a partnership for them. Among others, there's probably 30 or more different businesses specific to the 4 different shops. Partnerships include one suggestion from our advisory committee from the last week was, you know, the construction trades, electrical and carpentry said, you know, you have work study in the afternoon. Our trades necessitate to have the kids early in the morning. So we're gonna pilot that with a partner who's committed and a student next year. And if it works out really well, we can move forward with that. We also want to pilot where one student takes that morning piece and one student maybe takes that afternoon piece so that the employers are covered all day. So that's another tweaking we can do. And then we can, after we pilot, we can review and say, okay, this one worked well for these shops, this one worked well for the other shops, and kind of put it together that way. Because the co-op model is not practical for us to be 5 days on, 5 days off, because of just the way the teacher's structured schedule is. So that's one outcome, but for the students, it's ownership, it's safety. They can cover all their jewelry and anything hanging, you know, they'll have something to wear. I canvass very vehemently for 5 shirts. Each student's gonna get 5 for their particular shop. They're in bands, they're in sports, they're in the plays, there's so much to do that they can't be doing laundry all week. They need 5 clean shirts, they can get through their week. So each student will get their 5 shirts, the teachers will get shirts, you know, solidarity, the whole thing.
And I think I met with Tim, I don't wanna,
Cause
yeah,
yes,
him and I had coffee one morning, talking about this, and it'll
Yes.
also build some camaraderie amongst the different groups in the CBT program, and let them, you know, show their pride of the things that they're involved with. I mean, football players with a football shirt, and all that kind of stuff, so.
RTC has uniforms, you
Right,
know,
so it
Yes.
shows and so the work that Tim is doing behind the scenes is really impressive.
another way to deepen, the connection between local, businesses and our students, you know, and that partnership, because we're utilizing those as Brent described in terms of, you know, placements, but also utilizing in terms of their expertise on our advisory boards. So it's another way to, you know, just build connections. But yeah, really pleased with it. It came from, idea from, you know, Steve Buckley, the Chamber of Commerce, and Tim Sanborn, so 2 real leaders in the city. And so I'm real pleased that, their development, I should say.
just
Thank you,
wondering,
Brenda.
with
oh, you're
the,
welcome.
Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
with the students working in the community with the businesses, starting early and stuff, what would they have to come to high school first, or do they just go straight to the job site?
This we're working on, this came out of last week's meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, oh,
So
yeah. I
then
was just trying to imagine.
then we move forward
Yeah.
and, I'm working with James, and James was at the meeting and he said, you know, We can't do week off, but what we can do is we can pilot this for next year for those construction trades. Because part of the, particularly in the electrical, they said by the time the kids get there at 11:30, they're winding up down. They're putting their stock lists for the next day, they're cleaning up, it's not
Get their
productive for the
sleep up.
student. Yeah, whereas, you know, they can get there early in the morning, get all their stuff done, and then maybe after, come here for lunch, and then get their classes.
So much more sense.
Yeah, for those trades, for automotive, it might be a different model, it might be at Sudbury, there's that student in the morning and the student in the afternoon. And they cover every day for, for that shop, and then advanced manufacturing might fit that model too. So we thought, well, we'll get some serious partners, we'll do a pilot, and then we'll move forward from there. And that's something that's doable in the school schedule that we have.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, so, a little bit at a time.
All in favor to accept these wonderful things for the students?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do you want-
That's okay. Okay.
About.
Just about.
Okay, so we are now going into executive session. For two purposes. One is to enter executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 3 of Mass General Law 39, section 23B, to discuss collective bargaining with Gloucester Association of Educational Support Paraprofessionals and the Gloucester Teachers Association. And second, to enter executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 3 of GL 39, section 23B, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. So moved. Okay, roll call vote.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Sam, yes.
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 Laura is in the bathroom, but we have. Yeah, okay, good. So, anybody at home, we are going into executive session. We will only be coming out to adjourn. Thank you for joining us.